Hey guys, Lukey here, coach of your Vine City Beacons, and I'm back. It's been about 2 years. We're going to do this really quick and dirty, quick and simple. I'm just going to screen grab. I wanted to talk about my team. This is DPDL, National Dex, low tier. I don't know what season we're on. It's the first one with Omerta commissioning. And I said after my team crashed and burned in the first round against a very good team, captained by Boss, that this is the most fun I've ever had in draft league, and this is the most fun team I've had. Um, and I wanted to break it down because it was an interesting exercise in terms of using a combination of Pokemon that I like and wanted to use, and trying to push myself a bit as a team builder. So I'm going to have the screen in front of you right now. It's got just my roster breakdown. I also have an extra tab with my statistics for each of the Pokemon, and although it doesn't have times brought, um, you'll be able to roughly see figure out who was there basically every week. Um, so let's talk about the team. From the very beginning of the draft, my goal was to try and use Terra Captain Calyrex. This thing has just enough of a move pool to do lots of fun things. It lacks some power, but at this level, it has good bulk and an okay speed tier. And I wanted to give it a try as a 3 point grass mon. In my opinion, Calyrex underrated at 3 points, especially in super low. It's basically Wish, Celebi. Obviously, the 20 points less in every base stat really makes a big difference. But for this kind of level to have a good psychic type attacker is really valuable, and I think he could do a lot of work. So, as I was planning the team, I'll be honest, about half my team got sniped during the draft, and I had to kind of figure it out as I went. But opportunities kind of started to present themselves, and the really cool method in which Omerta ran the draft with ongoing auctions each round allowed for some creative solutions to my team building. Um, the main one being the only auction that I won was actually for Lantern, which ended up on Bone Tickler's team. He very kindly sniped Samurott, and then once I got Lantern for 10 points instead of 13, he was kind enough to trade it with me. And Samurott ended up putting in the most work, was the MVP of the team. We'll talk a little more about it later. So anyway, team went 6-1 in the regular season. Unfortunately, I lost the last two games that counted the most. One was the final round against Kanava, who brought a really sick team, and I had a hard time breaking through, especially his Bronzong. And then in the playoffs, crash and burned against Boss. And even though Boss was dealing with flood at his house, his team just matched up so well against mine, and I really didn't have an answer for Delphox. And consulted some people that I trust, tried some different things, ran my team much more offensively, and then turn one, I picked the wrong lead. I sent out Cryogonal, he sent out Delphox, and I was in a world of hurt from then on. So what it told me, and the lessons learned from this team, is that there are definitely some areas for improvement. I definitely should have stuck to my guns and my original style, which, if you look at the team and how I brought it most weeks, was as a bulky hazard stack team that had one or two finishers that could hit opponents hard. And I got away from that, and also once again feels like a curse that I always have in low tier. I'm weak to a strong psychic type attacker. I had nothing really that could have. Maybe the only thing that could have alleviated the situation was having Mischievous set up specifically to counter Delphox, but that's in hindsight. And the thing is, the rest of Boss's team was super scary even to prep for. And I was sad to see him go out in the semifinals. because I think he had probably the strongest team of anybody. So anyway, we're 5 minutes in. Let's do a rundown because I didn't make any changes after Grace. And the only change I made during Grace was trading Lantern for Samurott. So the squad you see here, with the exception of Samurott and Lantern, is in the order that I drafted them. So let's, well, if it's not in the order I drafted them, maybe at the bottom. It's pretty close. So let's talk about the team. First thing, I looked at the 18 pointers and I struggled to find somebody that I wanted to build around, especially because I had Calyrex. Um, and so I was looking for support bonds that I thought were undervalued. And the one that really stuck out was Gligar. And I thought with Gligar's attributes in Nat decks, this thing is super underrated. It has so many things. It's got lots of hazards. It got Roost back. It can defog, although I never used it. And it even has the ability to go offensive. And I thought, wow, for 11 points, I get a ground flying type, really rare, that can come every single week and do what I need it to do. Gligar, I think the stats are a bit misleading. 1 kill, 4 deaths, so -3 differential, but was part of 5 of my 6 wins. And honestly, as the season went on, I started to see Gligar more as an accurately tiered 11 pointer. The big things were it wanted to run bulk. And when it does that with Eviolite, it has to sacrifice its already not great attack. And to be honest, Earthquake hit like a wet blanket in low tier. And I quickly realized that it was limited and it was there for a reason. Also in Nat decks, there's way more knockoff. And because I made it my round one, I think people keyed in on the fact that I was going to bring this thing. It was super versatile and helpful that way. Even in a couple matches where all it did was take a hit, pivot, and then die, but allowed me to bring something else in. I think it really did its job. Um, would it be worth more points? Maybe just because of its versatility, but because of its lack of power, I wouldn't put it any higher. That said, base 85 speed, really nice, allowed it to outrun a lot of the walls that it faced too. So overall, I'd give Gligar like a 6 or 7 out of 10 for how it performed. It didn't meet my lofty expectations, but still a very good mon at this level. For my 18 pointer, I picked Tauros Blades. And the thought process behind that is it has almost perfect synergy with Calyrex. The only thing that they don't mutually cover is the flying type. Otherwise, Tauros can take the dark type moves, the bug type moves, and basically those for Calyrex, and Calyrex can take the psychic type moves and the water type moves and the ground type moves that Tauros doesn't want to take. And Tauros ended up being really, really good. I brought it mostly as Scarf. There was a few weeks where I had the speed advantage, that base 100 speed was really, really useful. And it went 8-3 plus 5 differential and was part of 5 of my wins. Tauros was great. I think it's worth the 18 points because of that versatility. Issues that it ran into on my team are even in super low, in Gen 9 Nat decks, there are still things that outpace it. Obviously, in the playoffs, Delphox outspeeding it was a huge problem. I ran it Trailblaze. It really needed to be Adamant Scarf to properly pose a threat to the team. And that base 100 speed, which in old gens would have been seen as like the standard to build around, sometimes felt slow at this level. But Tauros, great mon, the super low special attack on it hurts in the sense that it's coming as a physical attacker, but at the same time, its base attributes are really well optimized for what it wants to do. And would draft it again, absolutely. It was great as an 18 pointer. Next, I have Omerta's favorite Pokemon in low tier, that's Cryogonal. My thinking as I was drafting, I'm looking at my team, knowing that Calyrex is probably going to fall, and I need both. I want an offensive ice type because ice type is great offensively in draft, and I need a rapid spinner. So Cryogonal ended up being pretty high on my list. It's also partly inspired by James's teams of the past where he's used Cryogonal to great effect. Cryogonal, 4 kills, 6 deaths, came every single week and was useful almost every single week. There were a couple times where it was dead weight, where I fell into the trap of feeling like I need a spinner even though I have great offensive pressure. And I think what Cryogonal does really well is just that. While it has the spin as an option, freeze dry and its offensive moves generally work really, really well to put pressure on teams. There were a lot of teams that had really, really poor ice resists and really poor ground and water types that just weren't going to suddenly switch in on this thing and not a ton of steel types. So Cryogonal at 12 points. It was even briefly my Terra Captain. I switched it to Probopass because I thought Probopass could have something better to do. And I think it was all right, but it became a bit of a crutch because it's ice type. It's not great as a special wall. And obviously, in hindsight, maybe even weaker to Delphox and some of the apex predators on the draft board. So, good mon. I don't know if I'm going to use it again for a while. Next, we have Probopass. And Probopass, I was thinking, yeah, even after I make it a Terra Captain, this thing can put in work. It's going to trap the steals that Calyrex wants removed. And also for Cryogonal, why did I do that? Because Tauros Paldea Blaze already eliminates any steals that I'm really, really worried about. And this mon, I used it pretty well early. It came to a match early on in the season. 2 kills, 1 death, came to 1 win. So I think it only came twice in the regular season, which is not great, especially for a fourth round pick and for a Terra Captain. I just found as a Terra Captain each week, I thought Calyrex could do something more useful with its speed tier. And most weeks, I didn't feel like Probopass defensively was giving me what I needed. Um, and maybe that was a mistake because I think could have actually come as a dedicated Delphox counter. It could have come against Canava to do some shenanigans there and maybe blast something away with a Terra Blast. Overall, Probopass probably the biggest whiff on this team. While I needed something big and bulky, I don't think Probopass was the big and bulky thing that I needed. And for a fourth pick, it ended up going largely to waste. And part of that's on me. Maybe somebody piloting a version of this team will get something more out of Probopass. Next up, Garbodor. Absolutely love Garbodor. Would draft again, one of my favorite guys. He didn't come very much. He was there for 3 matches, 2 wins, 1 loss. Uh, oh my gosh, did I only bring Probopass once? Maybe. Yeah, and I didn't bring it for playoffs. Garbodor came a couple of times, was really great week 1 versus Bone Tickler, was definitely the MVP as it 1v1 Girder, who's a menace at this level. In a couple other matches, it set up hazards. And in my last match with Canava, I brought it as a weak armor setup sweeper, trying to take advantage of maybe his passivity, and it didn't work. Garbodor, I think, still has a lot more to offer at this level. It's a great physical wall. My team probably could have used it more, and I should have used it better. Definitely a mon I would consider drafting again because the versatility of being able to it's got middling stats, but being able to bring it as a wall breaker, even as a setup sweeper, and then of course as a defensive wall that just wears things down with Rocky Helmet and then Aftermath and gets up some hazards is really, really good. And I love him. Such a good mon. Next, we have Boltund, and Boltund, I think, only came once in the regular season, went 1-1, and then I think it went 1-1 in playoffs. um, Boltund, second time I've drafted Boltund, and once again, I think it just let me down. Because I had some real bargain picks, which I thought Gligar, was a real bargain. Probopass was a low point mon, and I knew I had something like Calyrex coming down the pipe that I could invest in some like expensive luxury mid to high tier mons. And I looked at my speed tiers. I couldn't get Excelgor, so I wanted something fast. Went for Boltund. Here's the problem. My team was really balanced defensively but required synergy from all six of my members to really do well. And Boltund provides zero defensive utility. Great speed tier, can volt switch on a lot of things. The other problem it has is it doesn't hit hard enough from either side. Although I did bring a throat spray hyper voice set that worked pretty well both times that it came. I just don't know if it was a good fit on this team because it put a lot of pressure on the rest of my squad to kind of figure out what holes it needed to cover. And Boltund, despite that speed, there's always a lot of guys that will just run Choice Scarf, and now all of a sudden Boltund's not the fastest thing anymore, and it needs a little bit more bite. I think a little bit overpointed for where it is. Next up is Honchkrow. Honchkrow, I hadn't been looking at it the whole draft, but it came three times. It came four times, including playoffs, where I brutally switched it in on a Delphox overheat, hoping it would be psychic to try and turn the game around when I was flailing and dying. But Honchkrow, the underrated dark horse of my team, 4 kills, 1 death. Honchkrow is a menace. I think it's accurately tiered at 15 points at this level because base 71 speed is problematic. It's good but not great. It feels like a low tier King Gambit in that Moxie Sucker Punch can really run away with things. Its ability to run mixed offenses, a super luck critical hit set. And as a dark type, because I needed one to block psychics, it was, it fills that niche as a dark type on its face, but you start looking around at the other psychic types in the tier, and it cannot switch in on very many of them. Obviously, the big one being Delphox, but Bronzong, another one that I really couldn't justify swapping in my dear Honchkrow. I'm just trying to see other psychic types that I faced. I mean, my half of the bracket was pretty light on those, surprisingly. Maybe Mr. Mime Galler, but I've got to get it in. Like that's, an Ice Beam takes it out. Um, so part of that was it seems like a lot of psychic types were just not brought or I didn't face them. Um, Honchkrow, definitely a great mon, definitely a mon I should have brought more. And in hindsight, in the playoffs, I should have saved it more to the end for real last ditch effort because you just never know. It gets one Moxie boost on a somewhat worn down team, and all of a sudden things are running away. But 4-1 for when I brought it, still could have gotten better out of it. Um, Excellent mon. Biggest downside is did not really contribute to the defensive synergy of the team. Next up, Calyrex. Again, the mon I built this around, it came to every match. It finished the season, I think, 8-6, including playoffs. It struggled the last few weeks as guys started to catch on to what I was doing with it. But I think Calyrex was useful in every single game it came to. Maybe except for the playoffs where I brought a pretty bold Terra Flying wall breaker set. But for the most part, it had, it's good base typing as long as you keep it away from U-turns and enough utility and enough bulk and just enough power to kind of figure out what you want to do. I think it still has some untapped potential in sort of like a Fizz Def set, um, and maybe as an annoying mon, but for what I needed it to do and what I wanted it to do, it was really fun. I loved having Calyrex in the builder, and it pushed Probopass out as it because it was really Terra hungry. It's like it wants to have it. But at the same time, there were a couple matches where it comes in, Terra's early, and all of a sudden I really wish I had its base typing, which for a lot of people they think, oh God, U-turn, like, it's great to get out of that typing, but there were a lot of situations where Grass Psychic was really, really nice. 10 out of 10 would draft again, although I think next season I'm going to go in a different direction with a different grass type and switch it up. Next, the MVP of the team was Samurott. Again, traded it from Bone Tickler for Lantern. Samurott went 10 kills, 3 deaths, one of the kill leaders in the league, came to all but one game, died a very sad death against Delphox in the playoffs, where a grass knot special defense drop was enough to take it out in 2 hits. But otherwise, this mon, I think I got to shout from the rooftops, is really, really underrated. Omerta, I think, should increase it by at least a couple points. And even though Samurott has completely fallen down the depths in Smogon's tiering in Gen 9, we're talking about a Pokemon that until this gen dominated, never used. And I know there's been a lot of power creep, but it's weird to see it not dominate or do well in PU or even really ZU. This thing's got such a great versatile move set. Its speed lets it down, but given what we've learned about Hisui and Samurott this gen, Samurott obviously misses the power from sharpness, and it definitely misses out on the dark typing. And obviously Ceaseless Edge is just broken. But Samurott has all of the other tools and a bit more bulk in exchange for speed tier that, especially at this level, really doesn't make a huge difference. So it's tanky, it can hit from both sides of the spectrum, so there's a lot of unpredictability. It has the base stats to even go mixed pretty well here. And honestly, I absolutely loved this thing. High base stats for 8 points. And my only regret is that I didn't make it my Terra Captain because I think in using it, it's the kind of Mon that needs just a little bit more coverage. It wants a strong ground move on either spectrum rather than, I think, Drill Run's its best offensive physical ground move. And it wants an electric type attack to nail some things that it can't otherwise. So Samurott, 11 out of 10. I'm at the risk of revealing this and getting my ass sniped next season. I am going to have to look real hard at water types and be convinced not to draft this again because I think it's a bargain, even up a couple points. Next was Mischievous. This guy, well, this girl, I brought it as a her each time, only came once. Who did I bring it against? I want to say it was either Quite Gold or um, Quite Gold or Rune Heal. And this is a mon I should have gotten more out of. One, good spin blocker. Two, setup sweeper with Calm Mind. Another mon that was in contention as a Terra Captain because Terra Fairy with Levitate and Draining Kiss is really, really good. A mon that I should have brought in the playoffs and could have done the work that I needed it to do for Delphox. And like of all the mons that I drafted here, definitely the most underexplored. It, I mean, Mischievous struggles for a couple reasons. One, its speed is good, but not good enough. Its special attack is decent, but not decent enough to just go uninvested. And if you want to go bulky, yeah, it's really bulky, but then Eviolite, and you're stuck, with non-stab Draining Kiss, or just being slowly worn down. Now you have Pain Split, but I don't know. At 9 points, it's absolutely worth it. I would definitely consider drafting Mischievous again. with as more of a core member of the team. One, because ghost types are pretty rare. Two, it's got a good set of immunities. But for what I wanted it to do on this team, it just ended up competing too much with, say, Cryogonal as sort of a specially bulky um, pivot that could help me out. But fun pick. Oh yeah, I guess I drafted Dusclops over this. Much to James' chagrin, I traded for it. I think for what I needed it, Mischievous was fine. I could have gotten more mileage out of it. I don't think Dusclops is making the difference in the playoffs. And finally, Pidgeot for 2 points, a sentimental favorite, but also before the divisions were randomized post draft, and I ended up in Division Two. We were drafting, and I was paired up in the same division as Chadwick and the Maidenless Bombies, and I'm looking at his team, and I'm thinking I don't have a Ghost Immune, and I need something ideally that's fast and could maybe pull off some buffoonery. And Pidgeot actually checked a lot of boxes. It only came once against Goalkeeper and the Drillburs as my special attacking fire type coverage for Orthworm. Um, this thing, I think, for 2 points, it could have done more. But again, back to my original tangent with Chadwick and the Bombies. Um, I looked at his team, and this thing looked really weak to like a sub-toxic Roost Protect squad, which hilariously James validated for me by bringing Emolga and had it do the exact same fucking thing and shut down Golurk and just annoy the hell out of his team. That's exactly what I drafted Pidgeot for, and because I didn't get to play Chadwick and we were almost locked into a playoff spot against each other. Pidgeot didn't get a chance to shine, but obviously it's Pidgeot. It's got mediocre attacking stats. The only thing it really has is speed. So we're looking at gimmicks. It can hit decently. There's a couple of matchups where it actually looked not bad, but for the most part, guys had stronger things and bulkier things that Pidgeot did not really serve a purpose for. And in the context of the team, I almost always had better options and didn't want to add on too much of, say, an ice weakness. So that's the team. Again, what I loved about the team was the versatility in team building. I felt like there were a lot of weeks where I could have brought. There were a lot of weeks where I felt like I could have brought 10 different mons, and so that was fun. I am still limited and growing as a team builder. So there were weeks where, and especially towards the end, when I needed to sort of get down to brass tacks, where I needed more information and should have explored the team more because some of those options turned out, could have made a big difference in how my season went. Um, but definitely there was a lot of competition within the team to come each week and to satisfy some of the defensive holes. Kanava pointed out the big weakness with the team the first time I lost, which is a huge water weakness. I only have 2 water resists, and there were a lot of weeks where Calyrex, uh, especially when it wanted to Terra, gave me essentially no water resists outside of Samurott, which might come offensively. And I really risked stretching my defensive core too thin for what is a very common attacking type at this level. But anyway, that's my 30-minute ramble about this team. If you've stayed this long, thank you so much for listening. Hope you've enjoyed it. For some of the guys, I'm glad to be back. Hope you enjoyed the sound of my voice for 30 minutes as I spill all and reveal my draft strategy for next season, where no doubt everyone will have caught on to my shenanigans, and I'm going to struggle to make playoffs again. But anyway, absolutely love this team. One of my favorites. I'm sad how it ended, but good luck to the final 3 currently that are left in DPDL as the low tier as at the time of this recording. And good luck to everybody next season, I'm really excited for what's going to go down. Thanks. Bye.